Gina Virginia Casella and the Dragon Dreams Soul Tribe Collective, pleased to introduce Julia AnchorHaven. Julia is a world traveler, Akashic oracle weaver, pendulum alchemist, violet flame Reiki master teacher, sound practitioner, quantum crystal healer, and retreat facilitator. She identifies as a MyLab and Secret Space program survivor, currently exploring and documenting fragmented memories linked to clones, stargates, and alleged involvement in covert, classified projects on and off planet. Julia also helps out behind the scenes as a dragon monitor and provides tech support in honor of Project 30, ISIS Unity Consciousness. Be sure to say hi to Julia in the chat. Julia would like you to know that in these changing times, it is important to center our energies, to focus on the beauty within and around us, asking the question, what else is possible here? Gina Virginia Casella and the Dragon Dreams Soul Tribe Collective. Thank you, Julia, for sharing your story medicine and for courageously dreaming with us, in addition to providing support behind the scenes as a dragon monitor and with tech assistance. Thank you for being a dragon medicine bearer, for helping us to create safer spaces to give and to receive medicine. One of the best ways to heal is with the earth, and that's exactly what we do with each other. Gina Virginia Casella and the Dragon Dreams Soul Tribe Collective, pleased to welcome Julia AnchorHaven.
Hi everybody, can you guys hear me okay? Okay, welcome everybody. I'm hoping that you can hear my sound. Just let me know. Okay, cool. Great. So this presentation is going to be a very fast run through, so we will take questions afterwards, but this is something that could have been a 2-hour or 5-hour presentation. So very quickly, I'm going to run through how I've been piecing together my memories of multidimensional lifetimes, working within special access programs on and off planet. And this is a trauma healing journey, so it is quite sensitive for me to talk about these things. But let's get started. So I'm just realizing I can't even see the screen. Everything's very tiny. That's fine. That was good, Gina. So yeah, this is a trauma healing journey. So the best place to start is we always get ourselves grounded. So please know that some of the information that I share today may be triggering for you guys. So if you do find it triggering, then please do step away, or just take a moment to kind of refresh your energy with water. And just waiting for that next slide again now. Okay, so we're going to be looking at a few different things today. I had the same questions like everybody else. Who am I? Why don't I remember my childhood? What am I supposed to be doing on this planet? So I connect in with the elements. So a big part of my trauma healing journey is activating my elemental energies and guides. So you'll see on the screen here that was working with anchoring your energy, earth energy, air energy, communication, fire energy is transformation and shielding, water energy is all about your heart healing, and then I trained as an Akashic record keeper to go even deeper into that shadow healing. So we're going to touch on a little bit of my journey today. So next slide, please, Gina. So I actually thought I was a regular person. For a long time, I thought I just had a mundane life, and I felt very limited, very isolated, and I didn't really know what was wrong, but I didn't sleep. I was a very angry person for a very long time. I did have insomnia and missing time, and I had a lot of unexplained pain in the body, and I was literally dismissed by the doctors as well. But I did start traveling, so there's some pictures there from India and Thailand, so you can see that I really did try and have a normal life before I realized there was a lot more going on behind the scenes. So next slide, please. The reality is that I actually have a dual life, or multiple lives. So Julia is the alchemist, she's the Akashic record keeper, she's the anchor and healer, and she's a sound therapist and has been doing lots of work over the last 30 years to really get tuned into energy and try and figure out what's going on. But what was missing was the covert life information, which has only come in the last 2 years, that I am actually an asset used in secret space programs, in the special access programs. That I was used as a scientist, a soldier, an observer, a handler, and I am actually bonded to somebody else who is missing. So I am used as an echo chain template, which means there's lots of me everywhere, on and off planet, and I'm also used to kind of control them as well. So this is what we're going to touch on very briefly as we go through today. So next slide, please. So remembering again, this is a trauma healing journey, and you will be getting signs, synchronicities. Your body and your mind are going to be sending you information. So your higher self might be sending you reminders and letting you know that something's not quite right. They might be guiding you to unlock information. Your mind might be giving you an idea that, noticing that something's missing there, that you used to be really into something and you can no longer do that anymore, or you're getting memories come in that do not fit into this reality. And then, of course, the body lets you know that it remembers everything. Your body holds all of the memories, whether they are from this version of you or parallel. It all bleeds through into this physical body. So it's likely that you've got pain, trauma, PTSD, and it's all representing your body's trying to tell you, because you are not your body. You are the being, and the body is within your being. So the signs coming forward, and this is what I've been trying to decode over the last 18 months working with my debrief process. So please know any information that you do start to recover is always grounded in trauma, because that's how these programs work. Yeah, so next slide, please, Gina. So I started to remember, and this is quite strange, because I started to do quantum healing with a UK practitioner, and they could see me holographically. They could see into different levels and layers of my being. Can you guys still hear me? I'm so sorry. I forgot to put my do not disturb on. I know it is. Okay, so can you hear me? Because my do not disturb is on, and I still got a call coming through, which is interference. This is targeting coming in. Just like how my laptop stopped working right before this, I literally just got a call invade by a potential handler. Right, so let's keep moving, let's keep going. Okay, so I started to unlock my energetic field working with a quantum healer here in the UK, and I started to get memories coming in that didn't fit into this reality, but it started to unlock as I was working with crystals and fire energy, and I started to remember. Now, I committed to doing daily meditations for the last 2 years or more, and I've been doing a lot of sound healing, working with gongs and singing bowls, tuning forks, and that has had a massive impact on my pineal gland, my third eye. But most of all, I've been questioning everything, because I'm an access consciousness practitioner. So I ask the questions all the time. What else is possible? How does this make any sense? Yeah, is this mine? And I keep querying. Even when I get things I'm really confident in, I still query and I validate with at least 3 other people if I can. So I started to find my context that wasn't really held in my energetic field. It was held with others. Other people hold pieces of your puzzle. And I started to get more and more information coming through. And that's when I realized the information coming through was actually covert information. So then I started to look into how can I access this information, and that's when I connected with the ACIO, the Advanced Contact Intelligence Organization, and they gave me 2.5 hours worth of information about me, different versions of me held in these programs. 75% of that has been verified and resonates. 25% I'm still working with. It's a work in progress, success in progress. But I got activated by specific code, a phrase, and we'll get to that. But I also had memories coming in from soul family, meeting people like you guys in the chat, meeting with people from the special access programs. It started a memory cascade. So this is a flood of memories coming in, a flood of information. And when that comes in, it actually upgrades your IQ as well. So I started to access different parts of me by interacting with others. So this journey, you can't do it alone. You have to connect with other people, and your higher self will guide you to soul family. They will. And so it's quite interesting. So let's go to the next slide. This was the very first memory that I ever got, and it was a couple of years ago now. I was working with a quantum healer in the UK called Felix Hyde, and we were at a Mind Body Spirit Fair, but this is the memory that came in, and I was the scientist. I was sitting there and I knew I was an Asian male scientist. I knew that next to me was a very large soldier, and in a split second my mind had gone from being the scientist to being the soldier, and back and forth a couple of times as if I was doing some kind of verification check. And I had no context for this, but the person I was working with said they thought it was Orion. And I have since confirmed, yes, I was an asset using the Orion Syndicate, and we affectionately refer to them as the terrorists in space. So I do have a link to Reptilian Labs working for the Orion Syndicate. Okay, next slide, please. I also started to connect in with versions of myself that are represented in soft disclosure, like the USAPs in cinema, USAPs in TV, so that unacknowledged special access programs in television. And the first one I connected in with was Umbrella Academy. And as I was watching this, I realized very quickly that number 7, Vanya, was me. When you look at her life and how her emotions were suppressed and controlled, how she was told that she didn't have any powers because of this. And then when you see her powers release, I have that exact same ability. So in the here and now, I released a plasma ball of light from my chest. And I was coming out of a meditation where I'd kind of I'd biolocated, and I saw an ET just walking down the street, and I challenged it and I said, "You're not meant to be here." And I came back into my body and I released a plasma ball from my chest, and I don't know where it went, but I have had this validated with a few other people that yes, I'm a phosphomancer. I have a light ability, and this gets utilized in the space programs for extermination of many different kinds of things. So I started to realize that there I was, number 7, and that was based in, I could link that back in because she blew up the moon. I had that verified in my ACIO records that is noted that I've also done that in another realm of existence. So I get used as a destroyer of planets at times. Yeah, so very severe work I get used for. Okay, next slide, please. So we talked about me traveling around a little bit. So I lived in India for a long time. After being in the UK, I realized that I wasn't meant to be here. I had an experience when I went to Tenerife, which is highlighted on the map there, and I encountered a dolphin. Just at a show, I was overcome with emotion, and that wasn't normal for me because I have an emotional suppression code. So even my family just thought it was, quite normal for me to be like Wednesday Addams, very shut down, very, less emotions, just rage, and that was considered to be normal. But I went on holiday and I encountered dolphin energies. And I telepathed with the dolphin, and I realized now I was experiencing the dolphin's emotions, and it unlocked something for me. So after that, I went back to the UK, I sold off everything I owned, and I started traveling. Now, I went to Australia, New Zealand, India, and Asia, but I realize now that I was just part of a global monarch program, that every choice I thought I'd made was actually a reassignment in these super soldier special access programs. So the map is showing you the different locations there where I have been as AnchorHaven, Where I've been is Julia, and how that links into the Commonwealth and the G15 countries. So I have memories of growing up in Toronto in a base there with my dyad. I have memories of being at Project Phoenix in Long Island. I've got memories of being in Russia and other countries like South Africa as well. So I've literally been used in programs all over the globe, plus off planet as well. So I do have off planet memories, yeah. So there's a global program going on. So it's not separate factions. It's not India SSP versus Russian SSP versus UK versus America. It's one massive program. Yeah, this is what people forget. It is one huge program. And you can be trained in America and Canada and then reassigned to Australia or vice versa. So I started to research as much as I can and really go into my memories. And a lot of things happened to me when I was in Australia, especially when I was in Kangaroo Island in South Australia, and when I was in New Zealand and all over. So there's different versions of me. You'll also see that it's highlighted. Diego Garcia is located on the map there. And this is a naval base that's in the Indian British territory. So I actually have a version of me that's there. I call her Sam. She's used as a disciplinarian. And from time to time, I clone slip and I see through her eyes. And she does torture people. She does. I see it. So there's versions of me in Russia, North Korea, Japan, China. And from time to time, I clone slip into their bodies as well. So it's a very interesting connection that you have as an echo chain template that I can connect into versions of me, but I can also connect into versions of my dyad and observe their locations on the map as well. So we'll talk more about my dyad as we go on. So next slide, please, Gina. So over the last few years, I started to realize that my life wasn't normal. I started to see through the control around me, and the handler card that you see there, these are from the Breakaway Oracle deck, which is now available at breakawayoracle.com. But the handler, you know, your life may be limited. It's the people that are around you. So your relationships, your colleagues, you know, people that you might just bump into on a regular basis in the shopping center. These are all handlers placed in your life, and unknowingly, they don't realize they're handlers. They are also handled to handle you. And then we've got observers who watch and monitor you from afar. And then we've got the targeting, the empowered interference. So I realized that I was in limiting relationships. My opportunities were getting shut down. Wherever I wanted to do something, it would always get shut down to keep me in a particular location. Or if they wanted to reassign me, they would literally tower everything around me. So my relationship would fall apart. I would lose my job. I would lose my money to push me back to the UK so I could be controlled further for another assignment. When I was in the UK, I got voice to skull coming in, and I was alone in a field when this happened. I was in a tent. I got a warning because I just unlocked something else, another quantum healing session that I was doing at a Mind Body Spirit event. So I got two male voices coming in, overpowering my mind, trying to scare me, to make me go home so that I would stop digging. Yeah. Unexplained illness and pain in the body. I did have to eventually go to the doctor and ask, why can't I walk? What's going on with my bones? Why am I in so much pain? And I had osteoarthritis. And this is actually also a signal that you have been through these programs, that you've been aged and de-aged, that your body has been through lots of changes. It ages the internal body. So I wasn't convinced basically that I was in this TIRAP program for a long time until I saw the sign from the birds. So I was sitting outside my home. There's a street lamp across the street. We have very big seagulls here, you know, like 2-meter wide wingspan seagulls, because I'm by the River Mersey, which is right off the Irish Sea and everything. So the birds were flocking around, and then one of them flew right into something above the street lamp that was invisible. So I heard the bang, I saw the bird shake itself off, and I tuned in my mind, and I saw that there was a box that was cloaked. It was a monitoring station directly above my home, over a street lamp. Yeah. So in the last year or so, I've had 2 black helicopters over my house. The most recent one was like a couple of hours before I was about to do an interview with Christy Campbell, CC33, and we were delving into Montauk, into Project Phoenix. So I just unlocked a new altar. So I got another warning from the black helicopters. So yes, like it's documented in my ACIO files, I am targeted and controlled. That is my entire life, just like the Truman Show. So I did not realize that my life should be different, because it's all always been targeted and controlled. I was told that I'm in the TIRAP program, which is supposed to stand for Targeted Individual Research Advanced Projects, but I realise now it's just the aftercare program. So if you're an asset, you will be put into an aftercare program, which is basically your targeting pattern. So I started to realise if it's a pattern, if it's a program, I can analyse it. And that's what I've been doing for the last year. So let's have the next slide, please. Okay, so I was analysing my relationships and opportunities. I started to put boundaries in place. I took myself out of a difficult work situation that I was in to focus more on grounding into my spiritual business and isolating myself in that way. I started to work with EMF protection, crystals, and then I got the medical help I needed, and I did have to have a foot surgery in 2025, but I also have x-rays that document that there were microchips in my foot after the surgery that were not there before. And even after we had kind of collapsed and dissolved that out, psychically, when I went back for a second checkup, there was another chip placed in my foot. So that had been like beamed into my foot. And so I started to connect more and more into nature and step into my sovereignty. So my perception totally shifted from being a targeted individual to being an empowered individual that was targeted. Yeah, so it's a big shift in perception when you start to take back the control and put your sovereignty statements in place and basically say to them, I see you, I see what you're doing, and I forgive you. And it totally changes the energy on that narrative. It really does. Let's have the next slide, please. So I was getting bleed through memories, and a lot of people might have this. So I put this in that you might have a very similar childhood to me. You might have been very active before age 11. So for me, it was ice skating and dancing. You may have had an outer body experience. So I used to be flying, floating. I used to get really annoyed that I couldn't teleport. It used to really bother me. So that's linked into time travel. I had a time travel memory come forward. Being young, holding a crystal and experiencing like a kaleidoscope of energies around me. You may have had an abduction experience of some kind, and I do have a memory of being on an ET classroom. And since I watched the Disclosure Day movie, I've actually had the memory of being laying on the table with another boy next to me. And I know who that boy is as well. And you may be interested in things like weapons, things that are a bit dark, but it doesn't bother you. You might be quite desensitized. So bleed through memories and interests do come through from the other personalities that you have in other realms of existence, yeah? And you may be fascinated by the esoteric and the paranormal, which I was for a long time, but every now and then things are just not in my awareness. I get redirected in certain areas. So I'm rediscovering myself now. I do get frequent mind wipes as well. So every 3 months I'll notice there's a podcast that I haven't seen, and then I find myself in the chat, or the host is shouting me out or whatever, and I'm thinking, okay, this is really bizarre. Or I'll have a conversation with a friend and they'll say, we spoke about this 3 weeks ago. You've been mind wiped, yeah? Let's have the next slide, please. So I had my first activations in 2025 from a black pyramid. And then I realized, which is local to me, I realized that's not the first time I've encountered a black pyramid. Going back to the Thundercats in 1985, the black pyramid ship is clearly displayed, and that's the introduction to the Lyrans, the feline cat people. And then when you get the Stargate movie that came out in 1994, again, we're introduced to black pyramid ships. So in very towards the end of February, early March 2025, I was in meditation and I got pulled into a local ship in Liverpool, and I literally just phased through. I sat down and it all lit up. It's like obsidian inside. There was gold sigils or writing in there, and I communicated with the ship. And the energy on this for me is that's my friend. That's the kind of energy. I realized then that I could connect into the Alaskan Black Pyramid ship that's more in a cave-like environment, and I could also connect into the Antarctica one, which is huge. It's much bigger than the others, yeah? So this has always been there for me. I am somewhat of a navigator for that, but it's different. It's like a telepathic connection. The ship itself is conscious. I do also connect into a ship that phases in and out of Cheyenne Mountain. It uses it as a docking station. So at any one time, I can basically calculate how many black pyramids are on the planet right now. My mind is saying there's 27 on the planet right now. So sometimes they phase in and out of different densities. That's why you don't always see them. But I'm fascinated by black pyramids. Let's have the next slide, please. So I got another activation when I heard somebody say Master of Observers. And this was very early March, I think, in 2025. I was just listening to a podcast, and somebody had said to the host, who was Peter the Insider, the guest had said, I keep wondering about these Masters of Observers. And he said, Master of Observers, how do you know that term, like that name? And my mind fully activated with a holographic screen, a heads-up display, projecting out of my left eye implant that super soldiers do have embedded in their skull. And it was really profound. It happened extremely fast. There was more than 9 screens open at any one time. And I was flicking out of tunnels, either monitoring tunnels, walking through tunnels with another person. I actually found myself looking at different TV screens. One of them had like a reality where everybody looked like The Simpsons, but it wasn't a cartoon. It was like another reality where everybody looked like The Simpsons. It was very bizarre. And then I experienced myself, I tuned into another version of me that was just like the Alias TV show. She was on a private plane. She was over international waters and she was receiving operational instructions. Yeah. So that was a massive activation for me. And it was right before I was about to have a meeting with the ACIO. So it's very curious. So yeah, so sometimes it's codes, it's words, it's phrases or numbers that you are encoded with. And I had a major activation from that phrase. Yeah. Just like the Winter Soldier in Captain America, he was activated with a series of words from that book. And he was saying to the guy, don't say the words, don't say the words. And then boom, another personality came forward. It was pretty much the same with me as well. Yeah. So let's have the next slide, please. So recently I had an altar come forward when I heard somebody's voice. I heard the voice of Stuart Swerdlow, and a friend had been saying his name to me at least 4 times in one conversation, trying to get my attention. Of course, they didn't realize they were being handled at the time when they said Swerdlow's name. I went onto YouTube and I found a video, and you know, he's an author, he's connected into Project Phoenix and everything, but he wasn't in my awareness at the time. And I opened the video and all I heard him say was, hello, everybody. And my body went into full panic attack and overwhelm. And my mind, where I had had an altar compartmentalized, came open. And when Christy Campbell did an energetic Reiki scan, she connected into another version of me called Kit Kat. You see sitting in the center of the screen there, and she's age 7. So the other picture of me, that's Julia at age 7. And you'll notice that her eyes are extremely dark. There's some kind of entity. When you look back at that photo, there's definitely something not quite right. So this altar of me, this personality, was created as a survival altar. I believed I drowned in a swimming pool in Liverpool City. I was in a health club. My dad was in the sauna, and there was a man there. And my dad had introduced this man to me saying, oh, he's like a secret agent at the docks. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then one day I found myself alone in the swimming pool with him. And as a game, he held me under the water until I left my body. Now, in my mind, my dad dove into the pool and saved me. But I knew I could never talk about it to anybody. The reality of the situation was that I was taken to Project Phoenix and I was drowned in a tank, and my mind was fractured to the point of Kit Kat was naturally created by my mind as a survival altar. So she stepped forward and pushed Julia to the back. Yeah, so that was probably one of the very first fracturings I had. And from that point, your mind then goes on to get fractured, and more personalities are trained to come forward. So this is Project Phoenix, which is all about creating time soldiers. They go through the process of breaking. And I generally don't dwell on this too much because a lot of people do, and they get stuck in just talking about the breaking process. But I'm on a trauma healing journey, so I acknowledge it. I see she is there, and I send her love. I send forgiveness to myself and to those around me. And even to Swerdlow, I'll send him forgiveness. Do I want to be in his presence? No, I do not. Because in another context of existence, he did very, very bad things. But I know it's probably not him in this reality. But I'm living with that trauma, that there was SRA and other forms of abuse attached to that as well. And I now have those memories integrated because Kit Kat is now available in my mind. So she's 7 years old and she is a time soldier. Can we have the next slide, please? So I do believe that we get taken because of the Celtic DNA lineage, because we are hybridized in the womb also, and before we make it into the womb. So the Celtic DNA is linked into the Tuatha De Danann, the tribe of Danu, which is the elementals that can connect into many realms of existence. So because that is in my lineage, that makes me coveted bloodline DNA. And you see there's two different pictures there. The one on the bottom, I'm like age 14. Looking relatively happy. The one on the top, I'm 15 to 16 years old. And you can see that something's happened in between those two photos being taken. 16-year-old Julia does not look the same as 14-year-old Julia. And what happens at age 15 is you get taken again for final brutal martial arts training before you go out to be deployed as an asset, an assassin, espionage, whatever it is. You go through brutal training where you die and you are kind of regenerated and die and regenerated. So I have a memory of my super soldier partner, who we'll talk about in a little bit. I have a memory of us walking up to each other and I'm just pulling out a dagger and stabbing him in the stomach. And this was just one of the many things we had to do to desensitize ourselves to dying. So that would be nothing. So we could just be a soldier that would put yourself out there in battle because you knew you were going to get regenerated. So it was just another day. Yeah. Okay, can we have the next slide, please? So the Global Monarch program that we touched on earlier, where they use assets all over the planet, so it doesn't really matter what faction you're in. I linked it back into being on a plane, like the Alias TV show. The Alias is actually a project. So Christy Campbell and myself were in a very similar project to what's displayed as the Alias TV show, where Sydney Bristow takes on all these disguises and she goes over international waters to go and, to recover something or to get information or to recover artifacts. That's a big thing of what we were meant to do. But for me, it was my soul bite, a piece of me was put into a clone. So I clone slip into versions of me all over the globe as part of that echo chain of clones. Now, as somebody who can access ancient artifacts and time portals and things like that, I was used for quite a few things as part of the Monarch training. I was used for clone management, handling, bioengineering, so there's lots of scientist versions of me, used as a spy, an assassin, a soldier, and just generally used as an all-round soldier. Yeah, so it's quite interesting that when you watch that show, when you think about it from the context of the special access programs, it's going to hit a little bit differently next time you watch it. And can we have the next slide? So this talk is titled Anchored in Shadow Strength, because everything I do, I'm anchoring in to that trauma healing journey. Your shadow strength is deep within you, and that's where your inner child resides, yeah, in that darkness. That's where our diamonds are forged, because the things that are your greatest strengths, you're generally told that it's not right, it's wrong, that you can't do this, and you're programmed away from those things, but really they are your greatest allies. So anchored in shadow strength, this is the trauma healing journey. And Whispers of Remembrance, I started to realize that I'd always known I was a twin. I'd always known that there was somebody standing beside me energetically. I just didn't know who that person was. And it was as if they'd been wiped from my life. So I always knew that there was somebody there. And even my mum had had a son, like a baby, who's supposed to be my brother but didn't become my brother, so anyway to say that. So I always knew there was meant to be somebody else. I just didn't know who they were. And then I found him. I found Drago Reed. So you can see pictures there that we were literally created together. So we're from the same soul family, from the same base code DNA. And then we were separated into bloodline families, and then we were brought back together for training and assignments. Yeah, can we have the next slide? So we are dyads, we are made as a pair. And the great example of this is when you see the Orphan Black TV show, which was very activating for me. If you've not watched it, please do. It's a great example of clones in our society, or Kruger cloning programs. So in that TV show, you see Sarah Manning, I think her name is. She gets off a train, she sees a lady who looks exactly like her, jump in front of a train, and then she goes and assumes her life and discovers that that lady was a police officer and she had been uncovering a cloning ring that was massive. So this is literally based on the energy, the information, the testimony of myself and Drago Reed, and this is documented, that is based on our archetypes. It's based on our files, yeah? So the lived experience I had was that I always knew I was a twin. We do have telepathic impressions. Sometimes we're working on the same projects of research at the same time. It's very freaky. And I kind of always felt that I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and that's because we weren't together. And then in December 2025, we did actually get together in the same place, the same time at the Basis 2025 International Conference, and our energies recalibrated. And it was a massive deal for us, because not only did it mean that, yes, we were made as a pair, we could literally feel ourselves go back into hemisync, yeah, so that our minds are linked in a way. Obviously, that's not always active all the time, because that's not appropriate right now, and we're on other sides of the world from each other, but that is there, and we both verify it. We both testify to this publicly, that we were made as dyads. So when we get together as super soldiers, and there's still versions of us working across time and space, that we are a powerful team working together as one. Even if he's boots on the ground and I'm on a ship, my mind feeds telemetry into his mind and vice versa, yeah? So we are synced. So this is something that we've both been having to deal with for the last 18 months and try and make sense of this reality. But we've experienced it, and this is our true testimony, yeah? So, yeah, so let's have the next slide. So we were in the Kruger Corps, which is actually the Kruger Mercenaries LLC. I do have memories of being a Kruger asset in South Africa, and that came forward when I was in Bases conference in December. I met another asset, a British guy called David, who I remembered from being in South Africa, from being in the same unit together in South Africa. So when you think of Kruger, think of them as they augment the body. And when you look at the video games, there's great representations of Kruger doing that there. So yeah, so Kruger is brutal, but they are very efficient soldiers. But it's quite hard to talk about the work that they do. So let's have the next slide, please. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to get on to how Kruger is different to Monarch in a minute, but I wanted to touch on the cloning program slightly. So I have a real-world experience of meeting myself in France in 2016. It was witnessed by 2 members of my family, and we still talk about it to this day, and they are not into any of the stuff that I do. They're very religious, but they know what they saw. Yeah, there was a lady who looked exactly like me, just across the street. She was not far away. So we were at Disneyland Paris. We were waiting for the shuttle bus to take us to the hotels. She was very pale, blonde looking, but she was me. And I knew it was me because I had a proximity alert in my body. So my soul alerted me to the fact that there was another piece of my soul across the street. So I got overwhelmed with kind of brain fog, nausea. I just felt awful. Can we go back a slide, please? And again. Yep, that one. Okay. Nope, go back, go forward. Onto the clones. One more. There we go. Let's stop. Back onto the clone woman, please. Next one. This one. Stay here just for a minute. So you'll see that there is 2 text messages there, basically. So from people who have seen versions of me. So December 2025, I was sighted in Bristol right after the Basis conference by a friend of mine. And then recently I was sighted just a few miles away from my home, working in a pharmacy. So I have millions of clones, and it's been documented that there are more than the average number out there. They're used in general society. They're used in deep underground military bases. They're used on and off planet. They might even get sold for currency or food at times as well. So there's a lot of me. So one of the things I've been doing over the last year is working to tune in, are they helpful or harmful? So are they being used nefariously? And if they are, I do my best to try and release them from whatever they're in. And working with Sean Bond, we've gone back to uncreate them. So from the point that they were created, we go back and we stop that happening energetically and psionically. So it's very important to know that your clones have real lives. These are real people. They are not always drones. Yeah, these are real people, and they could actually have families, could have friends, could have a job. They do not realize they are clones. Yeah, so that's one important thing to remember. So next slide, please. Okay, so the Monarch Umbrella Refugee Group is a faction, like a team that I was in with Drago Reed, and I think Brian Seng is reportedly in that team as well. And it's a small unit of super soldiers, and we were reassigned into a special team because we kept breaking through our programming, our monic programming. We kept waking up, and we kept trying to wake up others. So they literally reassigned us. But the narrative is that the Kruger, working with ACIO, rescued us from Monic and Umbrella and put us into a special group. But you'll notice there that Umbrella is not actually called Umbrella; it's called the Spencer Biotechnic. Yeah, so Umbrella either is just a like a familiar term that people use, or it's a sub program or something like that. But the company is not called Umbrella; it's called Spencer. And I talk about that a bit more in my Breakaway Oracle. So yeah, so even in Merge, we're still used for the same kind of projects: time travel, artifact retrieval, and asset retrieval and neutralization, bioengineering, corporate espionage. It's the same kind of things we're used for every time. So next slide, please. This is an experience that I had last year when I tuned into a version of me who was on a merge time mission, but she was 15 years old. So that's me and my dad, Drago Reed. We were jumping out of a plane. So I tuned into myself on the plane. She was sitting, looking opposite him. And I asked who I thought was a clone, "Where are you? How did you get here?" And she shared a memory of me of her stepping onto an Air Force plane. And then I could clearly see I was with my dad. I could feel that connection energetically. And then we stood up to jump out of the plane. And I asked the version of me, "Where are you? Verify." And she said that she was in Russia. And then she jumped out the plane and my consciousness came back into my body. I do conscious quantum meditation. So you can come in the room and I'll still have a conversation with you. But that particular moment in time, my mind had linked into my mind, which was in my here and now. So 15-year-old me was in her future, which is in my time. So that is a very unusual situation, but that's what happened. Okay, next slide, please. So the Monic, they are pretty much used by all the three-letter agencies. People go into Monic programs and you're put through MK Ultra, which we'll talk about in a second. So the MK Ultra is the mind control, but Monic is pretty much used by all the government black op programs on the planet, and even moving into off the planet as well. So they make super soldiers, they make spies, assassins, and honeypots. And even as a honeypot, you are used as an assassin, as intimate espionage, to get in there. So Monic Global Program is that whole world program. Monic have a DUM, that's the biggest deep underground military base, one of the biggest on the planet. That's in Toronto, and that's where I believe that Drago Reed and I were trained and basically raised as children. Let's have the next slide. So the MK Ultra. So there's two different techniques here that you can see. There's modern, which is for people who are a bit younger, and then there's traditional methods. Traditional methods had a lot of torture, ritual abuse involved. So people who are like, I'm 50 years old, so people who are around my age group and older would have gone through traditional methods of MK Ultra to fracture your mind, to create alters. Alters were then used to create soldiers, basically, other personalities. If you're a bit younger, getting into the 1990s, so the newer generation of super soldiers would have been put through something slightly kinder in a way, meaning they didn't have as much physical torture, but they still had a lot of kind of drugging and programming through TV, movies, and encoding through words as well. There's information there about assassins and espionage and the honeypot as well. So everybody has those initial training. Even somebody who works as a diplomat would have been trained to be an assassin, a spy, and a honeypot. That's standard training for every single asset. Yep. Next slide, please. This is one of the main memories that I have, and that is as a scientist. So a lot of people remember me as a scientist, and these memories started to come forward first because in a way they're gentler for my body to remember. There's not as much trauma seeing me as a scientist. So scientist memories are very quiet, very isolated at times because I'm still me. I'm still very aggressive and uncontrollable. And I can't see why I'm getting a call from Michael Koff. Let me log back in. Gina? Am I okay to continue? I can't hear you, you're on mute. You're still on mute. Can I hear you? I can't. There you go. I hear
Hi,
you now.
everybody. Okay. We're into overtime with Julia's presentation, but that's okay. Julia, let's give her another 5 minutes. I've got 1:14. Let's go until 1:20 because I know Julia's got lots of great information there.
Sorry. Okay, let's speed through. Okay. So we've got these scientist memories there. So if we can get back to that, that'd be great. So a lot of people remember the scientists. More women were used as scientists than men in the program. So next slide. So we've got the scientists, and you'll see the lived experience I have is that it enhances your IQ. You're very disassociated. I was using the Spencer, which is the umbrella, and they literally are the bio warfare on the planet. Let's have the next slide. So we've got the Russian SSP, which I cannot talk about, unfortunately, because I've recently had a really bad torture activation come through. So Mars, I have memories of being on Mars. There's different versions of me. I'm used as a clone scientist on Mars on a platform called Elysium. I'm also used as a soldier. So I'm used as a major on Mars who has extremely high authority in the war room. Let's have the next slide. So let's skip this one. So this is talking about the debrief process, which I'm going to recap in a second. Here we go. So we've got the breakaway oracles. We're right at the end here. So what I've done is I've created this deck of cards using the debrief process. So which is the trauma healing journey. Yeah. So when you're getting memories come forward, the first thing we need to do is just document everything. Not thinking about is it good, bad, right or wrong, just document it. And then we'll start to think about after that, okay, does this make sense to me right now? And only pick out the things that make sense to you now and focus on those, getting the context for those. The other things, you just put them to one side until you are ready to go back to them. So the breakaway oracle, what it does is it gives you a foundational level of information to help you make sense of your memories. So there'll be tools in the guidebook that comes with it. There's an activating meditation. There's also going to be a masterclass on pendulum alchemy to help you shift some unwanted energies and do healing. So that's going to be included there as well. We have the next, is there one more slide? Okay, so the cards themselves are an introduction into everything we've been talking about today, into the unacknowledged special access programs, which is MacWaffin, Solar Warding, Kruger, you know, all the different things. So it does look into many things. On the next slide, you'll see that we do get into healing as well, and we do get into different levels of targeting. So there'll be practical things there to help you. There'll be questions to help you see what makes sense to you. Let's have the next slide. I think we should be right towards the end. There we go. So you can connect with me at AnchorHaven.co.uk, which is my Patreon, where I do readings, which coming from next week will be breakaway Akashic readings. So I'll be working with the breakaway oracle. I'm still in a daily memory mining process. And if you have a look at my AnchorHaven Origins playlist on my YouTube, it goes into a lot more detail about what I've been talking about today. I will also be speaking at the Basis conference if there's time to do so. But you can find my videos on my channel or the Basis project as well. So thank you so much. So just know that you're not alone in this process. It might not make sense to you right now, but it's because you haven't found the context, but you will. Okay, you will. So we start with grounding, we move into connecting into the elements, and we start that healing process together. So thank you so much.
That was a great presentation, Julia. Thank you so much for that. I'm trying to remove your presentation. There we are. Make ourselves bigger here. Thank you, thank you, thank you for that. And I know Julia, she could easily go on and on and on about so much more information. It's a real wealth of information here. And we're having some tech issues here behind the scenes, which is only encouraging.
It's touching coming in because I shouldn't be able to get calls when I'm on Do Not Disturb. So how I'm getting 2 calls in the middle of the presentation, it just doesn't make any sense. It shouldn't be allowed. Yeah. So
I don't know why the break is up there. It does not want to come down, but hopefully it's just a little glitch and it will come down. Any questions for Julia? Let us know in the chat. Like always, I've got tons of questions here. We got a good 10 minutes until our break.
Okay.
So, where to start? So I appreciate all the mental health stigmas that you addressed. That was very powerful.
Mm,
And also the triangle of disempowerment when you were talking about handlers. I
yeah.
mean, if there's a good guy, there's a bad guy. Somebody's got to be the victim. Somebody's got to be doing the damage, right? And so that's what this business of the handler reminded me of.
Yeah, but everybody
Somebody
is the victim. Even the handler is a victim themselves. Yeah, so they have been either blackmailed into or they've been trained into thinking that they're doing the right thing. So what we can do is just send love to the handlers. And you know what? They don't like it, but we keep doing it. And maybe one day we'll convert them to our side as well. Yeah.
And do you feel that the handlers are, it's like a generational thing, like parent, child, grandparent? So the very children that you have could be your handler,
Oh
even
yeah,
though they're
so yeah,
for you?
anybody around you. So my personal situation, so the partner that I had, and even my son at times had a very limited narrative, shutting me down on certain things all the time, and the people I was working with. So anybody can be kind of controlled with voice to skull technology to put messages into their mind. Or my partner at the time, there was like activations coming through the lights in the kitchen. The lights were flashing to program him. And as soon as he left, that never happened ever again. Right. So, yeah, so I've done videos with Miles Johnston based on this, about the psychotronic warfare and the different types of electromagnetic frequencies, high frequencies, low frequencies. So I've got videos on my channel about that and on my diary videos as well.
Interesting. And when you were talking about how the body holds all the memories, I really appreciated that because the body does remember everything. And it reminded me of energy medicine work and the stigmas that come with mental health. And then even just like the voices that you were hearing in your head, that in itself is probably a carryover from past life, alternate life experiences, but we don't make sense of any of this until we start having these conversations. And so I was wondering, is the soul family the same thing as our handlers, or are handlers created as like a rape of the soul family? Like,
It's interesting.
is there a
So,
difference between soul family and
yeah,
handler? This is
anybody
my
can be a handler, anybody. And that's one of the biggest fears that we have, is about getting close to somebody and then getting used against us. And when you're looking at empowered people who have psionic skills, who are psychic, so one of the biggest fears I had about going to the Basis conference in December was that I would get activated to target my brother. I was really worried about it. And he'd already looked into it as well. He'd actually remote viewed me before he came out to see if that was a possibility, right? And and he knew that he would be able to stop me anyway, because that was the role that we had. I was used a lot of the time as a weapon, but he had like the calm down codes to control me. The soul family is anybody pretty much that you're drawn to spend time with. You're going to find that there is a soul family connection. So just like on the podcast, we're all finding each other because we have had past lives together, or our souls have literally incarnated here together. But the voices in my head at that particular time were definitely intrusions, male voices coming in. So that was a form of targeting coming in. But it's always important to question, is this mine? Who's talking, right? Who is this? Yeah. And if it's not yours, just by questioning, is this mine? It should start to dissipate the energy. But if you're getting a targeted attack, it will be overwhelming. Yeah, it will be excruciatingly uncomfortable and painful. So I couldn't talk about the Russian SSP because whilst I was trying to write about it the other day, it was as if my handlers said, "Oh, you want to talk about that, do you? Here's a memory for you." And they activated a memory that was so brutal, I could feel the torture. And I was on the phone to my friend at the time, and he could feel what I was going through as well. I couldn't speak, my nervous system was shutting down. So we're all at that point where we can be used against each other. So it's getting to that point of sovereignty and empowerment that's so important, to check your energetic field, to make sure it's super strong and shielded so they can't get in. Yeah.
Yes, and what you're saying is true. Energy can be projected and reflected a lot easier than what we think. And it is easy to send somebody negative energy and they start feeling sick. It also I wanted to thank you for role modeling transforming trauma into treasure, because it's not easy telling this story. And behind the
Yeah.
scenes, it was sheer hell for Julia to create this
Yes.
presentation. She's
It
open about
was.
that, which is why I say that.
Yeah.
But it was real hell for her. It was really triggering. You know, like, how do you sum this all up in a 35-minute presentation? But
Exactly.
what's really upsetting for me is this business of the amount of bullying that goes on. And why are people bullying? Ultimately, because power and control hungry. They need they need to shoot you down so they can go up, right?
Yeah.
And it is intimidating, especially cancel culture, when you're singled out. So that was really powerful. I see some questions in the chat. I will get to those. The black pyramids, I think that's really interesting too. Like, they're organic, biological, but are these black pyramids, do they have a mind on their own, or are they
Yeah.
sentient and being
Yeah.
controlled? Like,
They're
are they being
sentient.
handled?
Yeah, they are sentient beings in a way, but I'm not sure how they were initially created. They're basically obsidian and gold, but they're not from here. But when you're there, it's like you're telepathing with the consciousness that is the ship. Yeah, so maybe the ship is made and a consciousness is placed inside it. I'm not too sure. But I know the feeling that I have when I connect in is that that's my friend and I feel at home there. Yeah, and I even have a vision of I'm sitting there and I'm looking through the walls and I can see the soldiers outside of me. I can see there's alarms going off, right? And I'm just like, well, they can't see me, so I'm all good in here. And but that was quite funny. So they knew that I'd penetrated the ship, but they didn't know. So it was very much like Flight of the Navigator situation. If you've seen that movie reference, some people will get that. Yeah.
Wow. And black and gold, I associate with black and gold. Everything is black and gold. And my dragon was so, it's actually a dark purple color that looked black. And so
Yeah,
it's just
it's the same
interesting to
with
have
the
these
ships as well. Some
conversations.
people see them as purple obsidian, like obsidian sheen, which can be very purple looking. Yeah.
And in my dream life, I mean, I've got my own memories coming back here, but I feel like I'm more elemental related. And so I can't help but wonder, maybe I'm a ship, like maybe I'm not an actual soldier, maybe I'm a ship. And so it's interesting, you know, all these connections. Like you, and your relationship with Kid Kat, I was 40 going on 14. It's one of my books is named that. So I totally understand that.
Yeah.
My question kind of goes with somebody else's in the chat here. The aftercare program, is this like a holistic healing program, or is this
No,
an
it's a
opportunity to
targeting. Yeah,
retire,
it's a targeting
die?
program. Yeah,
Okay.
so you come out of, say, the special access programs like the super soldier programs, and it's Olivia James that talks about this and said it was the aftercare program, which makes a lot of sense to me. So it's imagine that your tour of duty is ending and you're going back to your everyday mundane life, but they've spent billions of dollars creating you as an asset, and they want to use you at any time. They want to control your whereabouts and everything. So the aftercare program is a targeting pattern, and everyone's is personal. So like for me, I'm generally okay if I plan things weeks in advance. But if I suddenly decide that I'm going to leave my house right now and get on a train and go to the other end of the country, that's going to create a massive problem for me, and I will physically feel it in my body and I will be targeted. I've even had people come in that were clearly army, gang stalk me when I went on that sound healing course a few months back, and literally they looked Germanic, they looked like soldiers. And they're like, like coming close to me in the doorway. And the next day they're in the town and they're close to me. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? So if I change my routine, then I have an issue. So the aftercare program is your personalized targeting pattern. It's the parameters of your life. It's your Truman Show, basically.
The Truman Show, yes. And what made you want to start the mystical wellness? I guess like all of your experiences that you've had.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah.
Someone was asking.
So for me, mystical wellness starts with magic. And I've been a witch since I was 8 years old. My dad took me to get a broom and a black cat because I knew that something was different. But what I didn't know at the time was that I was in these programs and I was separated from like my brother dyad and things like that. So my dad being, I guess he was a magical pagan person, but he didn't talk about that kind of thing. He did astral travel and things like that, but we didn't really talk about it. So he kind of set me up. And then I had a fascination with getting into reading books about vampires and witches and stuff like that. So I knew I was a magical person. I knew I contained a great power or strength within me, but I didn't know what to do. So it just made me more and more angry. So I started to get fascinated by anything that was esoteric. And I started to read books and things like that. And then eventually I started to move into wellness because I didn't know how else to heal myself or make sense of what was going on. I started traveling and I connected into Reiki. So I had Reiki Master Attunements. Then I had Violet Flame Reiki Master Attunements and everything. But what I've discovered, and I call it the mystical wellness pathway, is that you go through cycles in your life where everything makes sense for one moment and then life happens. You get reassigned or you get married, you have children, then you forget who you are again and you're trying to get back onto your mystical wellness pathway. So when people come and do training with me, I generally show them everything I know. See what resonates with you and let's create a pathway for yourself. So primarily I started off trying to make sense of my life because I didn't have the memories for the longest time. So I was trying to heal myself. That's how it started. Yeah.
Well, Julia, we are already out of time, and I'm glad we got to sneak in some Q&As. And those of you behind the scenes, Julia's presentation was originally like 20 hours long, and the pre-recorded she sent me was a good 30, 35. But as you can see, once you start sharing the story medicine, you really start taking the deep dive, right? And thank you so much, Julia, for all your work. You can tell you spent a long time presenting it and taking the time to plan what you wanted to say in advance. It did have a nice flow. So thank you so much.
Can I just answer one question?
Yes,
one question.
sure.
Okay. It says, is aftercare part of the Project Oblivion? So Project Oblivion is something that Olivia James has documented. So she did a remote view into the future and she connected with a soldier in the future that basically said, you are all the saviors. Pull yourself together. Okay. So Project Oblivion, I believe, after doing some work on this recently, is actually like an AI system that once we start talking about the secret space program and things like that, it activates and your life will be targeted. So Project Oblivion in a way is automated and it will continue to target you and target everyone around you until you stop and walk away from the secret space program narratives, yeah, or even disclosure or truth or whatever it is. So Olivia James brought back information that they were going to target people who are using their voice, the podcasters, the influencers. That's who's going to be targeted because they were having the biggest impact. And she also talked about the Olympian children, people who are kids now, but in the future. So right now they're basically gamers. Like my son is a 16-year-old gamer. He plays the games. That's what he does on PlayStation. But in the future, he's battling the AI. He's battling that Project Oblivion system. Yeah. So in a way, yes, it is an aftercare program, but it's something that we have basically activated ourselves. Like Skynet, like from the Terminator movie. We've created something, and while we keep, going on about that narrative, it's going to continue to target us. That's what I believe. Prove me wrong, guys. Okay, please do. Please prove me wrong. So I'm open to. But I've been working with Igron, who's a conscious plasma being with Eva Pico, and this is how Eva described it. Was like, think of it as a holographic hotel. You've opened the door to something, and it's just activated now. Right? And until you walk out that building and close and lock the door and step away, it's going to continue. And recently I discovered a super soldier who had literally gone dark, 15 years, gone dark, and he's just created a new life and he had to step away. So at some point we all have to just drop it for your own safety, for everyone around you. You're going to have to drop the narrative. Yeah, that's how I feel about it right now. Okay.
That's very powerful. And as you can see, it's easy to slip into timelessness with Julia. Drop the narrative. That's going to be the next name of your Oracle deck or something. Break away and then drop the narrative. And it's true, until you drop that narrative or change the program, you are on repeat, right? So I'm going to remove Julia from the stage because I'm tempted to keep talking too. But thank you so much, Julia. Thank you for being with us today. Super appreciate you. You can also find Julia in the chat. She's double timing today. So I know there's some questions that we didn't get into there. So we're going to take is it our third break now? Maybe our fourth? It is our third break. Got my notes here to keep me organized. I'm going to play my little break video, and then we'll listen to Jason H. Missing Time 420's little biography. If there's time, I'll play some music. Let me know if you like that jazzy music. And what else are we going to do? Oh, and before you know it, we are going to be listening to Soma Ara. And Soma, I saw you sign in there at the bottom, so that's really great. All right, let me remove myself from the stage. Let us know in the chat how you're staying hydrated, what you're eating, what you're drinking. We want to know it all. Okay, we'll see you in a little bit.